everyone, welcome back to my channel, RPG Retro Reviews. If you're new here, I'm Captain Courageous and I review old school modules and games and try to give them a fun and informative analysis. This week I'm taking a look back at the 1980 release of the Greyhawk Folio, the first ever release of Gary Gygax's legendary Greyhawk setting to the public. Was this 32-page folio release possibly the best campaign setting ever? Well, let's take a look and find out. This isn't really a review so much as it is a retrospective. A lot of people ask about this release, especially in regards to the much revered Darlene Map, and ask why people hold it in such high regard. Hopefully by the end of this video, that will be made more clear. Released in 1980, the Greyhawk Folio was written by the master DM himself, Gary Gygax, and was intended to be part of a series of supplements exploring in more detail the various political divisions, topography, and regions covered therein, but also to expand beyond just the small section of the continent displayed. Control and management at TSR was always contentious, and that goes back to the very beginnings of the company. Brian Bloom had fronted $2,000 for the fledgling Tactical Studies rules to publish the initial printing of Dungeons & Dragons, becoming an equal partner with Gary Gygax and Don Kay. However, after the unexpected death of Don Kay in 1975, Kay's wife Donna, who had no desire to own a game company, became a very reluctant one-third owner. During this time, the partnership was converted into a corporation called TSR Hobbies Incorporated. Gygax had 150 shares and Bloom had 100 shares, and then Brian Bloom convinced Gary to let his father Melvin purchase Donna's shares, giving Melvin 200 shares. Brian Bloom also purchased another 140 shares himself, and thus Gygax was reduced from a majority shareholder in control of the company to a minority shareholder, basically reduced to an employee of the Blooms. I discussed this in detail on my review of T1 to 4, The Temple of Elemental Evil, reviewing why it took 6 long years for the module to finally see publication in 1985, after the initial release of T1 Village of Hamlet in 1979. During this time, Brian convinced Gary to let his brother Kevin purchase his father Melvin's shares, and at this point, the Blooms were running the company. There was a president's office, which officially was held by 3 individuals, Brian and Kevin Bloom and Gary Gygax, and decisions were supposed to be by unanimous vote by the 3 presidents. However, it was still Gygax who was the driving creative force in the company, and as such he controlled significantly the directions of things. And this is where a lot of the tension at TSR came from, with Gygax beginning projects or directing certain things to be done, and then the Blooms coming behind him and changing direction. The ambiguity of exactly who was in control of everything is evident in the various publications of TSR's house newsletter, Random Events. The Blooms split TSR Hobbies into 2 companies, TSR Incorporated and TSR Entertainment Incorporated in 1981, and Gary became president of TSR Entertainment. He was essentially shipped off to Hollywood to explore TV and movie opportunities for the brand, of which the D&D cartoon series for TSR was developed. Consequently, many of Gary's projects were put on the back burner, and that included his plans for the world of Greyhawk. The folio itself is littered with mentions of future projects Gary had in mind but never saw the light of day. In 1983, a revamped box set was released, a repackaging of the world of Greyhawk that included the original Darlene Map from the folio, but was now greatly expanded to include the booklets, an 83-page catalog, and a 50-page glossography. It included all the information from the folio, but added additional information on the gods of the world, encounter tables, weather tables, and so forth, much of it called from the pages of Dragon magazine. In many ways, the box set is superior to the folio in its expansive detail, but there are many who prefer the simpler 32-page folio. So let's examine the contents of the folio and see if we can uncover why this is. There's an outer folder that has the heraldry of the various political divisions of the region arrayed around the border. The inside cover has a key revealing which belongs to which, and there is a module-sized booklet gazetteer, 32 pages long, that details the geographical and political divisions displayed on the map, a calendar, a history, a timeline, migration patterns, as well as a list of glyphs. The type is small, 10-point Sotan font, so despite the light page count, there is a lot of information packed into the scant 32 pages. Only the last 1,000 years of history are really detailed in 4 human cultures, their migrations and conflicts arising after 2 major cataclysms, the reign of colorless fire and the invoked devastation. The conflicts and alliances arising from the migrations and wars between these human cultures bring about the current political climate and conflicts in the present day. I think what a lot of people, myself included, find appealing about this format is that so much is left to the DM to work out. There is just enough description for a DM to go off of, to know what is in a particular place, but it is left open enough so that it can be customized to the tastes of those playing. All of the early modules are mentioned and geographically placed. The Against the Giants series, the Ghost Tower of Inverness, the Tomb of Horrors, White Plume Mountain, the Slave Lords modules, and so on are all mentioned in bold, so the setting can primarily serve as a backdrop for these modules. The Rise of Ayuz and the Battle of Emerity Meadows, the conflict at the Temple of Elemental Evil is described in some detail. For many years afterwards, new modules would also place their locations in the world of Greyhawk as well, referring to the Darlene Map's graphical locations. So, let's go ahead and examine the famous Darlene Map and see if we can uncover why it holds a place of reverence among old school players. The map was expertly rendered by Darlene Peckle, who was a freelancer with TSR at the time. She legally dropped her surname in 1984, so she is simply known as Darlene. The map rendered by her is thus referred to as the Darlene Map. Darlene's art graced both the covers and interiors of many early TSR publications, along with other revered early TSR artists such as Earl Otis, David Trampier, David Sutherland III, Bill Willingham, Jim Rosloff, Jim Holloway, and Jeff D. Upon first glance, why her map is considered so great is not readily apparent. Certainly, in modern times, there are far more realistic versions of Greyhawk available, but upon closer examination, certain things begin to reveal themselves. Of course, immediately one notices the predominant colors. Each graphical feature gets a distinctive and easily discernible color. This is not only visually appealing, but also quite practical from a gameplay standpoint. There's no ambiguity about what geographic feature you're passing through. The fonts are all rendered by hand, and while stylistically attractive, are also easily readable. The hex overlay is fully integrated into the map, and there is graph notation around the borders so that a specific hex on the map can easily be located if so desired. Even the water depths are clearly delineated by color coding. Then there is the sheer size of the physical map, which in 1980 was pretty remarkable. The included 2 poster maps are a whopping 24 by 34 inches and are easily framed for wall hanging, and I've had mine prominently displayed in my game room for decades, even when not playing a Greyhawk campaign. They always get noticed and commented on how cool they are. So at least for me, I feel that old school gamers revere the Darlene maps for their visual appeal and practicality for gameplay use, and I don't think anything that followed really checked off all the boxes like the Darlene map did. Greyhawk definitely ticks off the boxes for a generic medieval campaign setting as well. As a starting location, it's easily understood. It's a mostly faux European setting with magic and fantastic creatures added in. There's a weird mix of both pulp fantasy and a healthy dose of Tolkien added in as well. For anyone even remotely familiar with fantasy literature, certainly that describes accurately the people expected to be playing this game. The setting is easily understood without having to slog through reams of background information. So for those DMs who would like to indulge in a bit of homebrewing but lack the time to truly create such, or for those who are new to D&D and would like an easily digestible framework in which to hang adventures, the brevity of the original Folio release is possibly its greatest strength. It's rooted deeply in the history of Dungeons & Dragons and easily serves as a backdrop that can be, in time, developed through actual gameplay into something more detailed. There's room to grow and for characters to make their mark in the world. Conversely, Forgotten Realms has undergone the development originally slated for Greyhawk and is so overdeveloped, in my opinion, it makes it hard for new DMs and players to find their place there and make their mark without conflicting with established canon. But I'll put the question to all of you. What do you look for in a commercially released campaign setting? Is a minimalist approach ideal for you, or do you prefer something with a bit more meat on it? Please let me know in the comments. As usual with old school campaign settings of this kind of popularity, getting an original printed copy on eBay can be a bit expensive, with good quality copies running between $50 and $60. The good news is that this is available for print on demand now at DriveThru RPG, and you can pick this up for only $10.50, and that includes, of course, the PDF. The World of Greyhawk Folio presents a detailed recent history and sets up many political divisions rife with potential conflict. The historical account of the setting of the region further accentuates the various conflicts and alliances and interconnects the various factions. It is a setting on pause, easily digestible in its brevity, quickly able to serve as a backdrop for existing adventure modules, and is very much ready for DMs and their players to hit play and move things forwards. And in each instance of the campaign, from group to group, they will find their place in the world and change it so that each is unique and distinctive. In later publications, for example, the Evil Eye Ooze is established to be a Camion, part demon and part human. But in the Folio, that is left to the DM to decide. I think it's this unfinished and easy to digest format, along with a beautifully rendered and practical to use campaign map, that makes the setting popular with old school players, not to mention the epic fantasy adventures that we had there. And that makes this the greatest campaign setting ever released. Thank you all so much for watching. Sorry about my extended absence, but after 3 months of solid video production, I needed a breather to refresh my creative juices. Wednesday, I'm going to change things up a bit with a classic module review of David Cook's X4 Master of the Desert Nomads, and next Saturday, I'll delve back into the Gazetteer series with the Principalities of Galantry. As usual, I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to my patrons. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe and click the little bell so you'll get updates when I add new content. Please give this video a like, comment, and share. Join the channel's Facebook page, RPG Reviews, and consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron yourself. Or alternatively, you can just send a tip through the PayPal tip jar, link in the description. As always, my friends, may your D20 roll true and game on.